Everything that we need, nature has provided. So now when we're shifting that paradigm to this new way of being, this new state of being, now you look at Big Pharma, the $1 trillion octopus tentacle, which has its tentacles everywhere, you're now up against a giant. You have to have this awareness. You have to have curiosity and that insatiable appetite of doing your research and really challenging yourself around beliefs or narratives that mainstream media keeps feeding us. Doctors said, you're gonna be on medication for the rest of your life. And I'm here today, sitting here before you saying, I have resolved my autoimmune conditions. I am not dealing with it for the rest of my life. I am not on any medication, nor have I been on any medication for years now, all because I practice these foundational principles and I embody them in my day-to-day life.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Jemie. I'm excited to dive into all of the topics that you're well versed in and knowledgeable about, and doing some research on you a little bit. And I think it could be a very engaging, interesting conversation that I'm personally also very interested in. The topic of psychedelics has always interested me from the perspective of expanding the understanding of what life is. I think psychedelics play a strong role in us expanding what does it mean to be human, what is outside of the kind of three-dimensional reality that we live in. More and more people, I think, recognizing that 3D is not, that's all to it, that there's something beyond the measurable. And it's very interesting to explore those terrains, like those spaces. Yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Yeah. So I think a good place to start for you to say, what is your story?
Yeah, thank you.
What is your story, Jemie?
Yeah, the why behind why I do what I do.
Yeah. What's the main story that you carry? You can interpret it as a why, what you do, and yeah. So what is that?
Yeah, I think where I'd like to start is the path that brought me to plant medicine and psychedelics. And it was through my own healing journey. I was raised with a father who was an alcoholic and incredibly abusive. And he was taken away by the police when I was 9 years old. I disobeyed him for going to church. Threw me out the house. The police found me, arrested my father. The rest was history, but it left our family in a state of devastation. My mom was working 4 to 5 jobs just to make ends meet. I have 2 younger brothers. So for me, I had to really step up very early in my childhood to take responsibility and to really be a second parent and to carry the load of responsibility. And so it was very much the survival mode, never really having a chance to pause and think about or reflect what just happened. It was just like, we got to keep going. We got to survive. We don't know where our next meal is going to come from. Our first home was a legally converted garage, and so we grew up very humble beginnings. We came, it was East LA. During the 80s. There was an influx of Asians and Latinos coming in at the same time. So it was really funny. It's just like, all of our neighbors were Latinos. And so, we all just came together and just survived together, right? And so, while that all fared me well in terms of, developing character of responsibility, accountability, integrity, I never had a childhood growing up. But it propelled me into success at a very young age and early in my career where everything that I did, I was very successful in. And I was oftentimes one of the only women, the youngest, in the boardroom, in a team of executives. And I thought I was on top of the world. I felt invincible. I was like, wow, I could literally, whatever I want to do, I can do it. And so I've experienced success in various industries, everything from the corporate world to startup, all the way to nonprofit. And around 8 years ago, this was at a time where I was an executive at a management consulting firm. And I was at it for 2 years, and it was constant. And it reminded me of when I was at a law firm, at this very well-known law firm, where we were basically working 150-hour work weeks and sleeping under my desk and skipping meals. And it was the same kind of culture, same kind of environment again. And it was brutal. And I felt like I had to be one of the guys. I had to play into that role. Mm-hmm. I'm just as good, if not better than you, and I will outwork you. I will outwork anyone. So I skipped meals. I skipped my doctor's appointments. I didn't sleep. I was, you can say I was a constant workaholic. And so that was my addiction. It was the work, because that was where I found success. That was where I found validation. That is where I found an identity. And after 2 years of day in and day out of that, I decided to go on vacation. I went to Cuba. And literally, the day I landed in Cuba, my body just shut down. And it was like the moment I took time to rest, everything caught up. And I came back from the trip very, very sick. I had this cough that wouldn't resolve, which turned into bronchitis. I had Epstein-Barr virus. I had all types of this autoimmune response coming forward in my body, where globs of my hair was falling out. I was waking up in the middle of the night in puddles of sweat. I developed brain fog where I couldn't even have a normal conversation, let alone remember the next word I was going to say. And at that time, I was still at this management consulting firm and still trying to perform at a very, I would say just Olympian level type work. And I still remember the day that a partner looking at me, because I was just really experiencing heavy brain fog and lethargy. And he's just like, are you dumb? Are you stupid? And I'm just like, why am I doing this? Why am I still here? And shortly after that, my body just completely crashed. I was sort of this high-functioning depressive person pretty much all my life. I was on various SSRIs, none which worked for me. I knew that even as a kid. Right, I would actually go and hide the antidepressants because I didn't want to take it. But my mother would force it on me, And so, I was resolved that depression was going to be my norm for the rest of my life. I was resolved with that. And when all these symptoms came forward, I plummeted into the depths of depression to the point where I lost all sense of purpose to life, and quite frankly, I didn't see the reason to continue living. And in our culture, specifically the Asian culture, we don't speak about our problems. So we don't speak about mental health because we don't bring shame on ourselves, and we don't bring shame to our family, and we don't bring shame to the community. So I was suffering in silence, in the pits of hell. And my mother didn't even know what I was going through. And so I went away from the world. I went into complete isolation. I was bedbound. It almost felt like there was an invisible hand pressing against my body, pinning me against my bed. And even when I wanted to even get up to go to the bathroom, I had to literally will myself, okay, just put one foot out and one foot down, and literally having to like talk myself through every little move because it took that much effort for me. And so I went away from the world. I went into complete isolation. I was in so much shame and embarrassment. And out of the blue, in a span of a week's time, I had 2 people call me randomly. And in both of the conversations, those 2 individuals brought up the awareness of plant medicine and psychedelics, specifically ayahuasca. And they both shared with me their own experience in it. Now, mind you, at that time, 8 years ago, ayahuasca and plant medicine and psychedelics was like so on the fringe. I mean, it's still so fairly new, but more in the zeitgeist now. But back then, there were like, articles on GeoCities, right? It's like that kind of content. And so I'm very fortunate in that I've always considered myself a spiritual person. And I sat with a question of why was this thing of psychedelics and plant medicine coming into my field twice in a week? And it was that inquiry that led me jumping down the rabbit hole of researching everything I could about psychedelics, ayahuasca, plant medicine. And I remember landing on an article about somebody dying from doing ayahuasca. Well, technically, they didn't die from drinking ayahuasca. They died because they weren't kept in a safe container, and this person unfortunately walked off a cliff, right? But I didn't know what I didn't know, and immediately all the stigma came back in, right? The very judgmental about this thing. Oh, you can die doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of fear. And so I really sat with this fear, and I really investigated what this fear was about. And the fear was the fear of unknown and the fear of death. And so another part of me came in after I came to this realization and was really having this conversation with myself of, you tried everything possible at this point. You spent tens of thousands of dollars seeing all these Western medical doctors, none of which could help you. You've been on all types of SSRIs, every single fad diet, whatever it took, nothing worked. And so what else is there to lose? And what is on the other side of fear? And what is on the other side of death? And the word freedom came through, and it like rang through my entire body. And it was a total F yes moment. And so 2 days later, I jumped on a flight to Costa Rica, and I sat with ayahuasca for 4 nights, and it literally saved my life. It lifted me out of my depression for the first time in my life, after decades of dealing with this. And it gave me a renewed sense of purpose that in everything that I do is to be in service to humanity for the highest source. And so every morning I woke up, and I wake up with the intention of, God, use me for the highest service. And so it was 2 years after that was really feeling my way through the dark around integration and what that really meant and how to really heal my body. And that led me to getting my master's degree in the field of psychology, focused on psychedelic-assisted therapy, and led me to training, facilitating, apprenticing with various indigenous communities and bridging those 2 worlds together. And so when I didn't see a solution out there, leveraging all of my corporate startup, experience, I birthed a company called Psychable, and it's a platform to, one, connect individuals on their respective healing journeys with practitioners that can support them in a very safe manner and with an approach with integrity. And 2, to educate to really educate people around what this work really is, what the work around psychedelics is, so that they can make the most informed decision for themselves. So as I was doing that, I have continued to build my private practice, which I have supported hundreds of individuals that are dealing with addiction issues, with, everything from alcohol to hard substances, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all types of various ailments, mental and physical. Mm-hmm. And along the way, I've also not only researched and studied this work and worked with top experts and detox specialists, mm-hmm. all which now then I combine into my practice. And it's really based upon 12 principles. The 12 principles, which really addresses the mind, the body, the soul, and the spirit. And allowing that innate intelligence within all of us and being in collaboration with that innate intelligence. Because what I always say is there is no guru or expert out there to know how to heal your body. You know how to heal your body. I'm here as a practitioner to keep you safe, to remind you, to help give you guidance. I can give you some frameworks. I can give you what has worked, what doesn't work. But it's ultimately an experiment. It's an experiment of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So there's a constant feedback loop that we're engaged with. So yeah, all of that is now, I would say, the impetus of my work, right? The work with Psychable and the work in my private practice. I think the last thing I'll say is, in summary, I think the thing that really sets me apart is resolving my own mental, physical conditions with depression, anxiety, autoimmune. I've been able to reverse my autoimmune issues. And I think this is all what really keeps me in this deep path of devotion and being so passionate to be able to show up for others and for their healing and for their well-being to help them thrive.
For sure. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah. I'm sure that resonates with so many people in the Western world specifically, because this type A, like go, performance type mentality is very, very common here.
Oh.
I grew up in Belarus, we're outside of kind of this Western world, so it's very apparent to me that it's very different here in that sense. Even though I did go to school, studied at the university, and I've seen it all from first-person perspective, but I've noticed that I was different in that sense. For example, at the university, it was very common to do all-nighters. Like people would just study all night, basically. It's like part of the culture, totally acceptable. I've done just a few of them, but typically my approach to I'm studying for an exam and I'm super tired and I want to go to sleep. I just go to sleep. I just close my book and whatever I know, and I've gone, I've passed through. I wasn't at top of the class. That's like I wasn't a top A student, but I was decent, right? But I think and everyone is really trying to be like at the top of the top, and that requires so much more effort than just be right a little bit above it and be a lot more happier, I think, with your life. So I totally see how that's such a wide problem here and shifting. So maybe starting there, what would you recommend we all do to start shifting the perspective of like burning yourself out, try to achieve this one of like a top 1% of your performance? Is that still necessary for some? Like, do we need to try to achieve that? Like what's the optimal, and I know that for each person the optimal might be different, but overall, what's a healthy way of achieving your goals, or being in that ocean of highly competitive achievement environment. Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing that comes through, so in the field of psychology, there's a term called introjection. And so metaphorically, what that means is, say you bought a beautiful brand new house. It's empty and it's ready to be furnished. And so as you're trying to think about what you want to, how and what you want to furnish your house with, all of a sudden your mom comes in and says, you need a couch in that corner and it needs to be white. And then your dad comes in and says, oh, you need a black table in that area of the room, right? And so I think what's really important here is realizing what is yours and what is not yours, right? That conditioning, that narrative, right, that we collected along the way, whether it's through our parents, our family, society, right? So much of this conditioning is really unconscious oftentimes as well. It's just like, it just becomes robotic, and this is part of our training, and, life has always been this way. Well, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Like, what is this metric of success, of holding myself to society's metrics of standards and success? Like, is that mine? Is that really mine? Or is that of someone else's? And so I think it's really important to slow down and really sit with yourself and introspect around, what is my truth? Did I even really ever know what my truth was to begin with? And so this whole process is a journey of deprogramming, shedding old beliefs, shedding old narratives, shedding what serves you and what doesn't serve you anymore. What is for your highest good? What is for your highest purpose here? Right? And I think it's a process, it's a journey, and it takes a lot of work. And I think it's also important to name that we are living in today's modern world. We are not living in the world of our grandparents and our parents anymore. And so there are also other invisible forces at play that we need to be aware of, that oftentimes continues to feed into this cycle of, I got to achieve, and I got to keep up with the Joneses, and I got to do this, and I got to be able to work around the clock. Well, yeah, there's systems at play that is counting on you to continue to keep grinding and to keep hustling and to keep doing all the things. And then it's no wonder why we are finding ourselves with a society that is so sick mentally, sick physically, and they're just at a loss at what to do. And they just keep cycling over and over and just, get stuck in this loop of this washing machine. And something as part of them knows that there is something more to life than just this. And so some start searching because there's a need, there's a necessity, because they are not healthy, because they are dealing with sickness. And some just keep going and going and going and may not ever realize this even at their deathbed.
Yeah, it does feel though the problem is shifting in the younger generation, I think, are recognizing this problem earlier, maybe because the problem is more severe and it's surfacing up sooner or something like that. The older generation, as you mentioned, some of them might not ever realize it, but I do believe the current generation will most likely all recognize that there is a problem somewhere in their lifetime. There's this interesting, I really resonated with that. So Terence McKenna talked about how in Western society, the consumerism society, they're trying to sell you stuff by telling you that you're not good enough in certain areas, that you're not cool enough, basically. And what I really resonated with Terence McKenna sharing is saying something around, I'm not sure if I'm cool, but I'm extremely resistant to the idea that I'm uncool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, what's coming up for me is even a recent client session that I had, and just to kind of keep it vague, so we're protecting the client privilege. But I had a father who was saying that he has a 5-year-old, and he had a conversation with his wife about, hey, we should probably start thinking about, eating more healthier as a family. But he's like, but I just keep buying the Fruity Loops and the Fruity Pebbles and all of that, and I don't know why I'm still doing that. And I'm like, I think what we need to realize is, do you think General Mills has your best interests at heart? Do you think General Mills has your child's health at their top of their agenda? No, they're counting on you to continually be a lifetime customer, a repeat customer, and for them to continue to manipulate their ingredients with chemicals so it activates the brain of wanting that thing over and over and over again, right? So we have to be aware of these things. And the other thing that was coming to me was, when we look at the Industrial Revolution with the Rockefeller, right? Rockefeller said, I don't want to raise a generation of thinkers. I want to raise a generation of workers, right? Even in our education system, right? When it comes to our children, right? So this is about shifting a paradigm. It's shifting a paradigm from the conventional, what doesn't work, the conventional of being under the weight of a diagnosis, looking at somebody in the white coat and thinking that their word is God and giving your power away and being like, oh, yes, doctor, whatever you say, I'll do whatever you say, right? And then pushing the latest drugs, the latest medication that creates new symptoms, new diseases, right? And then you're now in this chronic cycle of not getting well. And it's shifting that paradigm to empowering you as the CEO of your body, of your health, right? Going in eyes wide open, feeling empowered, knowing that you have that knowledge and the skills and the tools, leveraging effective, natural, holistic approaches. Everything that we need, nature has provided, right? So now when we're shifting that paradigm to this new way of being, this new state of being, even from a cost perspective, it's even more cost effective on the short term than on the long term, right? And then now you look at Big Pharma, the $1 trillion octopus tentacle, which has its tentacles everywhere, right? You're now up against a giant, right? And so you have to have this awareness. You have to have the curiosity and that insatiable appetite of doing your research and really challenging yourself around beliefs or narratives that mainstream media keeps feeding us. And it's like, wait a second, let's really take a moment to critically think about this. Where is this information coming from? What agenda does it ultimately serve? Right? And so we as individuals, this whole work is about it's a reclamation. It's a reclaiming of your sovereignty. It's a reclaiming of your freedom and not being under the control of anyone else's agenda, right? And we now live in a society where they just want to get you sick enough where they can extract as much out of you, of your productivity, right? So that, they want you to be just healthiness where they can extract that, and just sick enough where they can control you and manipulate you. Because when you are sick, you are much easier to control. So we have to be aware of these things. And we have to be aware that we live in today's modern time, which means there's other invisible factors at play that are constantly disconnecting ourselves from our body. So, for example, EMF, electromagnetic frequency. We are now in the 4G, 5G, right? Electromagnetic frequency, if you trace the history of it, it was used as a biological weapon in warfare, right? And so 4G and 5G gets now deployed through our devices, through our Wi-Fi. And there's so much implications around that. There's so many studies now that are talking about that, right? It breaks down even the cell membranes in our body. It activates and increases the parasitic activity in our body. Everyone, I don't care who you are, if you're in the first world or in a third world country, we all have parasites in our body. This is the stuff that nobody talks about, right? And parasites can wreak all types of havoc in our body. It can mimic depression, it can mimic anxiety, it can cause all types of chronic illness in our body. And so we need to have the knowledge around how do we properly detox from our body? How do we properly do a parasite cleanse? What is the frequency of that? That becomes a lifestyle. It's now a lifestyle shift. And so when we talk about things like psychedelics and plant medicine, while that can help reset us, the biggest work is the integration work. And the integration, right now, it's talked about as talk therapy. It is beyond a talk therapy because your body can be in constant inflammation and you can do all the talk therapy you want, but is your body really healing? Right? So we need to approach integration in a very holistic, integral way, right? Addressing the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit. Why? It's to allow the soul and spirit to fully inhabit our body so we can be more in alignment, so that we can be conscious and we can really know what our truth is and why we are here and what our life purpose is.
Yeah. Speaking of more actionable kind of steps for people to take, so let's start with depression. What would you say are top 3 methods or tools that you see are very useful in healing depression and anxiety in people? Yeah.
So it's more than 3. And so what I operate in my framework is grounded in 12 principles. And the 12 principles is restful sleep, proper nutrition, but really knowing what to eat. Like we think we eat healthy because we eat a salad. Really know what to eat, that foods that are non-inflammatory to the body, clean air and clean water. In the United States, particularly like if we take Miami, for example, Miami is the top of the list of having the most toxic water. Right? And if our body is made of 70, 80% of water and we need to be constantly drinking water, well, we need to be drinking clean water, right? Not waters that is filled with toxic chemicals and toxic, lead or whatever, right? We have to be aware of that. And having the right support around body, energy work, talk therapy, and doing and knowing how to have a proper detox and parasite cleanse, right? So you can detox all of the environmental toxins and chemicals out of your body, reducing that EMF. So simple as, turning off the Wi-Fi router at night, just simply unplugging it, turning on your phone on airplane mode, going into the settings, you have to take this extra step, turn off the Wi-Fi and turn off the Bluetooth. You reducing that inflammation in the body, doing a complete overhaul of your pantry, of your kitchen, because you can eat the best organic food and grass-fed, meats. But if your pots and pans are leaching toxic metals into your food, your body is bearing that toxic load. And really optimizing on the breath, right? We have not been taught how to properly breathe. And so I assert that breath, really knowing how to breathe and certain breathwork techniques can be just as potent and powerful and transformative as plant medicine and psychedelics. Really being able to know how to increase your energy and optimize on that breathing. And under that umbrella can be knowing, if it's right for you, like microdosing, but microdosing in a really safe, spiritually centered way with intention, right? Stress management, we all know stress kills, right? It's a cliche, but it can absolutely wreak all types of havoc in our body, right? Depression, anxiety. And under stress management is also learning and choosing the right people to be in your life, right? Having the right energy around you, right? We're all made of energy. So really choosing and being very discerning of who you allow in your life and who you allow around you. And then finally, it's having a healthy digestion, right? So TMI, but we really need to be moving our bowels 1 to 3 times a day in a very easy manner, right? And that continues to open that drainage pathways for us, continues to detox the body from all of the toxins that get stored up and that come through our food, that come through our water. So those are really the 12 principles in which really supports overall well-being, right? And it doesn't matter if you have depression or anxiety or PTSD or addiction issues. Those 12 principles are the foundation to not only heal and return back to a life of normalcy, but those principles are ways of how to really thrive in today's modern world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a very cohesive, like a very comprehensive list of things that people should really wrap their mind around and becoming more aware of. I feel like most people are not, and creating that bridge and meeting people where they are is instrumental in having them walk over that bridge to the point where they're aware of every aspect that you just mentioned. What would you say would be the first step into that bridge?
Yeah. Well, so again, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. And, I have clients who come to me and say, I just need to be able to take a shower. And so we resource that individual based upon where they're at, right? And so we take baby steps with people like that and just helping them start resourcing their nervous system, doing some gentle breath work, having them to start just eating better, right? Just cutting out the junk food and the burritos that they just buy because it's just so easy, right? All the way to people who are already on this path. They're already doing all the things. But then, there's just little tweaks here and there, like finding the culprits. And for example, I have clients who send me pictures of everything in their pantry and in their kitchen. And so I go through all of the pictures and I spot little culprits there that might be impeding in their way of getting well and having that breakthrough and achieving their goals.
Yep.
Right. So it really, the approach really becomes individualized, right? And a lot of times we need to take baby steps, right? You heard the 12 principles and it's like, whoa, there's so much, like, I don't even know where to begin, right? And so it's taking baby steps. So one of the things that we've done was we've come out with a course called How to Overcome Depression Without Medication. And there's 2 courses. The first course specifically addresses, okay, if you feel called to do psychedelics and plant medicine, here's everything you need to know, from how to choose the right practitioner, facilitator, retreat, to how to really properly prepare yourself for a psychedelic experience, all the way down to the dieta, the nutrition, what you should be eating, the state of mind that you should be in, how to form an intention, the journal work, all the way to integration and what to look for in integration. And then the course 2 goes deep into the integration work. So whether you're ready for psychedelics or not, then we go into course 2, which is the breaking down the 12 principles. And depending on where you're at, okay, you feel like you need help with nutrition, you start there. You feel like you need help with EMF, you start there, right? So So it's really designed, like I said, to really meet the individual where they are at.
You know, so when you were sharing about IMF and frequencies, and once I got this very visual experience internally, of understanding, and it was, I saw how, let's say, even the sun emits a lot of, basically IMF frequencies that are affecting every biological, entity, basically. And our body learn how to adapt, how to regenerate fast enough to balance it. It's almost the same as we are. So on the surface of the earth, there's a certain amount of pressure that's being enforced on us, and our bodies learn how to create counter force to be able to keep our form intact. And similarly, fish really deep under the water, their body adapted, and so in a similar way, the sun emits lots of those radiation and frequencies that are destroying our cells, but our body is capable of regenerating it enough. And so having too much additional IMF basically harm, like your body's not capable of regenerating it fast enough, like that. But I think a certain level, maybe, let's say we are spending less time on the sun. So I would suspect that we're getting less sun radiation. Now we have a lot more different other types of radiation. And I don't know if anyone have done a study like what's the healthy amount of radiation your body is capable of handling. You know what I mean? That would be interesting to because then you can understand. Okay, so maybe now you can buy some kind of like a device or something.
There is actually an EMF device,
right? That's constantly measuring how much of that is right.
Yeah, and it goes from, it's just green, yellow, orange, red, and so you can purchase these EMF devices on Amazon, on eBay, and we have that. And so yeah, I think what I will say to that is what's really interesting, if you remember and recall when I said that when I was in that deep depression state where I felt like there was this invisible hand pressing up against me and pinning me to my bed, that was a smart bed that I was on. It was supposed to monitor my quality of sleep. And so and this is the bed in my LA house. So when I brought the EMF machine over my bed, that thing shot up immediately to red.
What was there like what type of radiation does it need to?
Well, it really, what the meter is showing is that there's very high EMF frequency happening. And so once I turned off the smart bed, or I unplugged it, it went immediately to green, which is just cool. Like you basically cooled that environment. And I'll tell you what, I got the best quality sleep that night.
Really?
Because it can be very disruptive for your sleep quality as well, right? It's interesting because like people wear the Oura Ring or like these, smart devices to measure their quality of sleep, when actually it's disrupting. It's also potentially disrupting the quality of sleep. So that's why I tell the clients, unplug, your Wi-Fi router at night, keep your phone, cool it off, put it on airplane mode, turn off that, Wi-Fi Bluetooth setting. At least when you're sleeping at night. And what's really interesting too is oftentimes we find that the Wi-Fi router is in the baby's room or in the child's room. And then we wonder why there's behavioral issues. They can also impede brain development as well. So these are all things that we just really need to be aware of. There's all types of studies around that, about what is the healthy radiation. But from a practical perspective, like that's applicable into your day-to-day life, you can get an EMF machine. And the last thing I'll say is what was interesting. So our house is completely hardwired, by the way. We have no Wi-Fi in the house. And I was going around the house with the EMF meter just to make sure, right? And everything was cool. But all of a sudden, I start seeing this ping happening. And for the life of us, we like, where is this thing coming from? And we found that it was coming from our washing machine, right? Because all these, appliances now are retrofitted with, smart Wi-Fi capabilities. And so we literally had to unscrew the washing machine, tear it apart to find this little chip,
Right.
and to be able to remove that so we can completely keep the house cool. And so why did we do all this, right? Why did we do this? Because, well, first of all, I'm a mother, right? I have a baby, and I want to give her the healthiest, foundationally, the healthiest environment for her to thrive, right? I want myself to thrive. And also I want to give her the best opportunity, the best environment for her to thrive. So this helps with her brain development. This helps for her to have the ability to be in her full expression of herself without having to feel this constant blasting of radiation that could be disruptive to her body, to her nervous system, to the cells of her body, right? So I always look at it from a more practical perspective. We can rationalize, we can look at all the studies, we can have all the knowledge, but oftentimes I find that there's this cognitive dissonance where you can be with some of the smartest people with the most knowledge and all of these things, but they cannot or understand or have the awareness of really implementing it and applying it into their day-to-day life. And so this work now becomes the embodiment, right? All of these principles I embody in my life, day to day, moment to moment. This now becomes that embodiment and that way of life and that state of being, to where I have, since 8 years ago of resolving, coming out of that depression, never feeling depressed ever again. Even after I had a baby, which oftentimes mothers who have babies go through postpartum and are very vulnerable to depression. Didn't have that. As a matter of fact, I gave birth to my daughter naturally. And yeah, I think it's just really embodying this work so that you are proactively staying healthy, right? And then also on top of that, resolving my autoimmune issues, where doctors said, they basically, to me, in my perspective, was giving me a death sentence, right? You're going to be living with this for the rest of your life. You're going to be on medication. You're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. And I'm here today, sitting here before you saying, I have resolved my autoimmune conditions. I am not dealing with it for the rest of my life. I am not on any medication, nor have I been on any medication for years now, all because I practice these foundational principles and I embody them in my day-to-day life, and all of which I now help my clients do the same. And we have seen such transformation within a month, within 2 months, of all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I have not felt this level of peace, this level of joy since I can remember. And it can happen that fast, but you have to be willing to do the work and implement and embody and make the choice moment to moment.
Yeah, I think as you were sharing about like the IMF and other devices, or like somebody taking a photo of their pantry and you giving them recommendation what's healthy and what's not, I think there's like a business opportunity or like an idea where with AI, AI is now able to read the images and stuff. So you have some kind of either device or an app that's like basically does the full assessment, like, oh, go take photos of this, measure that, and it gives you like a full report of like what you need to address and change in your environment.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, with AI, I think leveraged the right way, just like with any tool, can be very beneficial and can help scale the impact that we can have. And so I'm always very open and interested in that. But I'm also in the same vein, I want to call forth privacy. I want to call forth security. I want to call forth safety. Too much and too often do I see, this is everywhere, where people are just so easily giving away their power. And a simple example of that is their social media, right? I'll take the example of being a parent. They are willfully and willingly, with no care at all, taking pictures of their child and posting it and thinking, not thinking anything of it, but also realizing that you're actually potentially compromising your child's identity, their safety, that there is also a segment of a population that can be ill-willed, that can be predatory, right? And can be potentially abusing the content in a way that you don't even realize. And even to the point of identity theft, right? So we just have to be aware of these things.
Yeah.
And so like our policy as a family is we do not post any photos of our child. She does not have any internet presence whatsoever. And maybe perhaps when she gets to an age, a legal age where she's fully conscious and she can make the decision and her choice herself. In the meantime, I, as a parent, as a mother, will do everything in my power to keep her safe so that she can thrive.
Yeah, interesting. So what do you think, say most parents are probably at some point posting and sharing their photos online. Let's say 50 years from now, they're grown-ups and they have all of the whole life has been documented. What are the negative repercussions that could be like result of that?
Yeah. So with AI, you can easily use their face and manipulate it to certain content without their permission. You can utilize their identity to create and pretend that you're them. You can sell it also using AI to create certain content in the dark web for potential, I don't even know how to say it without saying it, but just ill-willed intention, right? And I just think we just have to at least have the awareness that all of these things are possible. And so when you have that awareness, then perhaps when you are making the decision before you snap that picture of your child, just to slow down and be like, is this to protect them or is this to seek more attention? Or is this to share under the premise that, oh, look how amazing my family life is and look at me, but at what cost?
Do you see the future of being more private or more public, let's say 50, 100 years from now? Do you see humans being more exposed, more transparent with the world, or less transparent?
I think at the rate it's going and without the full awareness and consciousness, I think people are already just giving their power away. And I think that will continue to perpetuate unless we continue to bring that awareness to light, right? And I think a perfect example is people's own personal accounts, their bank accounts get hacked, their privacy, they have identity theft that they go through it too. It's becoming more and more rampant. There's a lot of tools in place for ill-willed, ill-intentioned people, hackers, to be able to make a quick buck and compromise your security and compromise your privacy. We now live under an illusion of security. It's an illusion. And so you have to be aware of all the things of how to really protect yourself and all the various tactics and tools in place to safeguard you, your personal private information, and safeguard your family.
Yeah, sometimes I see this whole like us, let's say, hacker theme, like there's a subset of population who are constantly looking for ways to break the system or crack the system or use different vulnerabilities. This could also be seen as a totally natural process of evolution, of us exposing vulnerabilities of the next configuration and the next complex system that we're building. Yes, we didn't have that before, but now there are new challenges. And in order for us, even like privacy and security, we've never had those issues before. We never had cell phones with, the cameras and the microphones before. And I invite, in fact, those challenges because I think that's a total, like, we shouldn't be shying away from them. I think we should be just bring them on the forefront and say, this is not working. We need to come up with solutions, how to create a new, upgrade ourselves, upgrade our operating system or hardware or something like that.
Right. And I will just offer that both you and I are fairly educated and we are fairly knowledgeable and we take action. The general population doesn't even have an awareness to this yet.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I think that
But do they need to, at certain levels, I feel like they might not even need to be aware of the battle between the hackers and the security, people who work on the security. On those higher levels, it's going to be resolved. People don't have to really go into the code and understand, like,
of course,
the deep level of what's happening.
But they need to safeguard their information and their personal information, right? Because they can also be impacted.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean.
I would suspect you guys have no what's it called? Like Alexa or Google of any kind.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, especially you mentioned your partner works in cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, yes. And so even like when I'm not using my cell phone, for example, I turn it on airplane mode and I turn that Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth off because our devices are also constantly listening to us too, right? Typical conversation over the lunch table. Oh my God, I was talking about getting shoes with no heels the other day. And all of a sudden I was fed with an ad that had shoes with no heels saying those specific words.
Yeah.
We need to know and have an understanding of the technologies that exist today and not give our power so easily away and just kind of blindly go about it, right? When you are posting that picture, you are literally consenting that platform to own your image, to do whatever they want with your image. Okay, now that you have that awareness, you are choosing that. So whether it's good or not, and share, I'm all about like authenticity and sharing our stories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we just have to have an awareness and that consciousness of what is really at play.
Yeah.
And have choice, right? That's what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for choice. I'm advocating for safety. I'm advocating for ensuring that no harm gets perpetuated.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's just a balance, a healthy balance between being aware and being paranoid. On all the way on the other side of like no information, like you could just be paranoid about everything. There's so,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Sure. No, yeah. And I don't get wrapped up in that. I think you, like you said, it's a fine balance, but it's just, you have to know the world that we live in. You have to keep your eyes wide open. Not everyone in this world is benevolent. Not everyone in this world is ill-willed. But there are lighter sides of humanity and there are absolutely darker sides of humanity. And I'm not even saying this because, this is in theory. I too have personal experiences with these things. So, I think it's unfortunate that unless it happens to you, then you kind of wake up to it. But you know what? If more and more people are having experiences with their accounts getting hacked and their bank information getting stolen, or all of a sudden money being moved out of your bank account, yeah, then you're going to care.
Yeah.
You're going to definitely care. And these things are absolutely happening, and they're happening at a very increased rapid pace. And so I think maybe perhaps people who then are going through it will start waking up to it, and they're going to have more and more conversations around it. So anyway, I think we just have to have a consciousness around it.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to you being a very conscious container, you create containers in which healing might happen. I think on all levels in your personal life, and in fact, example of to the degree of the awareness of all of the aspects that you go into gives people a great perspective. You probably take your work in a similar way. You're very conscious of every element that could impact people's healing and right.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is I have to be the embodiment of the work. I have to model what this looks like. It's not do as I say, not what I do, right? There's so much of that. There's so much charlatans out there that espouse to be, a shaman or a psychedelic facilitator and blah, blah, blah. And it's not for your highest healing or your highest agenda for you. Oftentimes it could be riddled with their own stuff and their own shadows and all that. And I'm not saying like I'm holier than thou. I certainly have my own stuff and things that I'm still continuing to evolve through and process. But it's a choice that I make of keeping a clean, clear, safe container so that I can show up fully to be in service for that person's highest good. And that's it. And I would say even in the ceremonious space, the work that I do with magic mushrooms, it's to keep a very safe, clean, clear container so that they can show up to fully do their work and to heal. And that's it. And so I think it's important to talk about safety when it comes to this work, and also embodying this work, and not just keep doing the psychedelics because you're not feeling, the same kind of high or anything like that. The hard work starts outside of medicine, outside of ceremony. Actually, as a matter of fact, every day becomes ceremony. And how do you embody those lessons? How do you integrate so that you can continue to heal your body and continue to step more and more into alignment with your life's purpose for whatever reason that you are here?
Yeah, as you were saying, I also saw the analogy of a developed world having this very common theme of convenience And I think safety is somewhere there as well. Like us, as we were evolving, we learned how to build more and more like protective structures, buildings, cathedrals, like things that protect us from the external world. And it's innate desire for us to create a container in which we can feel safe. But I think there's also almost like a boundary of usefulness of this practice of creating a box in which because once the box has no doors to escape, then it's also what's the balance between a safe container in which you can expand and the container in which you feel trapped?
That's an interesting question. I think the first thing that wants to come forward around this is your body is your temple.
Yeah.
Your body is your temple. And what I mean by that is the divinity and the God and the source that is out there, that divinity is also within you. So if that divinity is within you, then your body is a holy temple. And if your body is a holy temple, that means you need to do all the things to keep this container clean so you can be in full expression of that divinity. Right? And so this is why we do the work. This is why the 12 principles come in play. This is why the foundational work comes in place. It is so your soul can fully inhabit this body, so your spirit can be in its full expression of itself. And so what I metaphorically oftentimes say is like, to really ground this work is think of your body like a Ferrari, right? Are you going to give that Ferrari the lowest grade, lowest quality gas? No, you're going to give it the highest quality, highest grade gas.
Fuel, yeah.
Right? And so that's why you eat the purest, cleanest foods. That's why you drink the cleanest, purest water. Is so that you can be in your optimal, highest performance, the highest expression of who you truly are.
And speaking of integration, I know that's a big part of your work. Kind of walk me through the importance of integration, some of the practices that you guys do, and bring more awareness for people who are maybe considering working with plant medicine and not yet aware of all implications of that.
Yeah. So what I would say is when you think about psychedelics and plant medicine, the metaphor that comes forward is it's like choosing to ride a roller coaster ride, right? So you get on the roller coaster, you go up and down, you get on this high, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's exhilarating, and oh my God, this is frightening. And then you get off that roller coaster, and then what happens? You go back to normal life. Nothing really happens. Nothing really changes. And so it's very similar to a plant medicine psychedelic experience. Is I always say, like, if you want to go for the high, go ride a roller coaster ride. But if you're really wanting to do the work and you feel the call with plant medicine that it can be very helpful and supportive to your journey, caveat this, psychedelics and plant medicine is not for everyone. It is not for everyone. There are different modalities that can achieve similar experiences or non-ordinary states of consciousness, breathwork being one of them, yoga, prayer, whatever that is, right? And so for those that want to do plant medicine, psychedelics specifically, if you want to have lasting impact and to really start healing your body, that is where integration comes into play. And that integration work, I have spoken extensively around that foundational of the 12 principles. And really learning how to integrate and bring that into your life and start making more conscious, more aware choices so that your life evolves now into a new way of being, a new state of being. And now you are eating really good, healthy, quality food. Now you're really drinking good quality water. Now you are turning off that EMF in the house. Now you are having really healthy digestion where you're moving those bowels and you're, cleaning out the drainage pathways. Now you're detoxing your bodies every quarter, every full moon, and cleaning out the parasites out of your body so that you are keeping the cleanest container to be in the fullest expression of yourself and continue being alignment with your inner truth. Right? That is the work. That is the way of being.
Yeah, because I also recognize that part of that's certainly a very important, if not the most important part of the integration. But the other one is recognizing the misalignment in your life. Let's say your personal, corporate life, whatever other aspects of your life that you have. It's also cleaning that up somehow. And is there a practice that you guys also walk your?
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. So one of my clients is an executive at a major airline company, and he came to me with, challenges with addiction. He had this unresolved chest pain that no doctor can diagnose, no doctor could resolve. And he was a workaholic, right? He worked all day, and then he lacked the motivation of wanting to do anything else, wanting to get out of the house, wanting to be around friends. And he has a lot of friends, and he didn't want to be around anybody. He didn't want to be around family. And I took him through, we went through 3 sessions, and part of those sessions was a simple breathwork technique, a simple breathwork exercise where it is a technique where it is allowing the breath to be in cadence and drawing that breath from the belly and inflating your belly like a balloon, and then exhaling and deflating that. So literally it's just, it goes something like this. And doing just simply 5 minutes of that, encouraging him to integrate that as part of his daily practice the moment he opens his eyes before he gets out of bed, to go into this 5-minute breathwork technique. He has reported back in his 3rd session that he feels spectacular. He feels like he wants to be with his family and his friends again. He is having more of a work-life balance where he's not working all the time around the clock. He's actually being even more productive at work. And more importantly, that chest pain that was unresolved has been resolved. And it was simply through breath. And so that is one of the very many techniques that I deploy with my clients. But another really simple practical one is just inhaling for 5 seconds and exhaling for 5 seconds. You can do it with the mouth and then switch over through the nose. So it's as simple as that. And so as we just do these really simple practical things, those little things compound over time. And then the shift happens. And so when you talk about convenience, we want things fast, right? We're in the age of Amazon where it's like one click and the product shows up and we got what we needed, right? And like that instant gratification. And while that is great and convenient for us, healing doesn't happen overnight. And so I think that's one thing we really have to really sit with and understand. There are moments where you can quantum leap and like, yes, we got the healing we want. And in one session, like that pain was resolved because of that breathwork technique we just did. So yes, that can happen. But it's really contingent on each individual and how and where they're at and how willing, able, and ready they are to do the work. It really simply comes down to.
And it sounds like a lot of the integration and all of those practices are bring yourself back to the center, either to your, I mean, your body is your main center, your energetic center. It's all just alignment. And then once that alignment happens, then healing happens.
And I will just add, the intention is so key and important here. Even before you do the breath work, that intention, stating an intention. And so how do we make an intention? Very, very simply, right? You present it. And it's as simple as I am, and you fill in the blank. And you create a positive feeling. What is that positive feeling that you are calling into your life? We're really, really good at talking about what we don't want. And so when we talk about what we don't want, we're constantly living in that state of, I don't want this and I don't want that. And so then you contract and you're just in that cycle of just like that washing machine of like not healing and just being in that negative state of mind and that state of being, right? And so you present it with, I am, a positive feeling, and precise, simple. So for me, I am happy. I am calm. I am harmonious. I am divine. And so you state that intention and then you go into your breath work. You state an intention and then you go into that microdosing experience. Or you state an intention and you go into that plant medicine experience. Whatever that is. Or you state that intention, you go on that meditative walk. And so that is the energy that then reverberates into then manifesting into the present state of being, of what it is that you are calling into your life.
What would you say are the most surprising, like aha moments that happened to you throughout this work by seeing other people heal, maybe learning information about the space? Like what are some moments where you were like, wow, you were a little bit kind of shocked, surprised?
Yeah. So in the field of psychology, there's this term of the wounded healer, right? And the wounded healer is the one that has walked the path, right? So this goes back to my why. My why and my differentiation is that I have walked this path. I have walked the path of depression. I have walked the path of autoimmune condition, right? And it all starts with my inner work first. All of this, before I can be of service to others, is how I do my own inner work. The more I can do my inner work, the more I can show up for others. The more I can do that inner work for my healing, the more I can show up for others to support them in their healing, right? And for them to feel like they don't have to do that emotional labor because I have to walk a similar path. It might have been the same exact path, but I really can empathize. And so I think the biggest game changer in this work, in this inner work, not only of myself and of my family and also with my husband and doing it for them, was the Parasite cleanse. That was the biggest game changer. And guess what? Nobody is talking about it. Nobody is talking about it. The second I did my Parasite cleanse, I started to see the chronic conditions and the autoimmune conditions start resolving. The ability to get off of all my medication, the ability to then literally after I started purging parasites, get pregnant and to have birth a beautiful, healthy child naturally. And then to see my husband and to support him through his process with Parasite cleanse, to be able to resolve a chronic stomach condition that was irritating his stomach, that was not healing. To be able to see a resolution with his other autoimmune triggers where he was losing patches of hair on his face, on his head, and seeing all that hair coming back again. So just seeing the results. And, and that comes over time, right? It's not doing a parasite cleanse that is definitely not overnight, right? These are parasitic negative entities that are in your body that didn't get your permission to be in your body, and you've been a great host for them, right? And the things that they love are mold, milk, chemicals, sugar, right? These are the things that they love. And guess what? We love them. And we're not conscious. We're constantly ingesting it, and we're just feeding into that. And so doing that parasite cleanse for then my family, where with my mother, I was resourcing her, and she had a tumor in her breast. And it was luckily it was caught early. But doing a parasite cleanse started shrinking that tumor, right? And so, look, the things that we're talking about here, it's against the status quo. It's against conventional wisdom, right? It's incredibly disruptive because it actually works, right? And there are big agendas at play, and lots of money from, big pharma that doesn't necessarily want you to know this thing, right? Because if you do know it and you get resolve from your conditions and you are healthy, guess what? It hurts their bottom line. It just hurts the bottom line. It hurts the money, right? Because it is about the money at the end of the day for them. But for you, it's about your healing and for you to get well and you to get into a place of thriving.
And what are those methods of healing? Is it, again, back to the 12-step process, or are there specific, let's say, I don't know, what other methods of healing your biome?
Yeah, so that I talk very deeply into all of my courses. And so the 12 principles, those are just the foundational, right? You could go really deep into those verticals, and there are specialists that are specifically dedicated to those verticals. For me, it's really giving you that foundation so you have that awareness, you have that knowledge and understanding, and then you can start going even deeper into those specific verticals. And so with respect to, for example, parasite cleanse, there are specific protocols, and it's not a hunt and kill method. It's like you have to first detox the body. You have to resource your mitochondria so that you fire them up. And so when you are ready to start doing a parasite cleanse, your cells and your body is working in tandem with you to actually purge out and clean out the parasites in the body. And so there's other supplements that are protocols that help with that, and there's steps into that protocol. And then there are also other modalities like coffee enemas that can accelerate that cleansing process too.
Tell me a little bit.
Coffee enemas, yes.
Yeah.
So basically, there are therapeutic coffee brews where it's specifically for cleaning out the body. And so if you don't know what an enema is, it's basically a tube that you stick through up your butt. And you pour this room temperature coffee brew that you make. It's a therapeutic roast. And it basically gets, it basically goes through that tube and through up your butt and fills your body with that with the coffee brew, right? So it's not a
self
you can self-administer it as well.
Okay.
Yes, and we teach clients how to do that. But you want to do there's steps. It's a protocol, right? And it's hard to speak about because this is stuff that can feel embarrassing, or it's like, oh, this is like sticking something up my butt, like what?
Yeah.
But it helps accelerate the healing process. It helps accelerates the cleaning out of the parasite of the body as well. So the other thing I would just say is oftentimes before you decide to do a detox and a parasite cleanse is to find a holistic dentist that doesn't use fluoride to clean your teeth. Why? Because everything starts in the mouth, right? You eat your food, you drink your water. Well, guess what? The parasites come through your food and through the water, and they also reside in the mouth too. So what I oftentimes recommend is before you do your detox, your parasite cleanse, to go see that holistic dentist, to have a teeth cleaning. Allow, if your gums are bleeding, allow it to heal for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then you start the detox parasite cleanse process.
And with your guys' platform, tell me more about how you help people. It's educational. It's connecting you to the practitioner. What other elements? Community probably is an aspect, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah. And so what we focused on last year was really how do we resource our practitioner community. So there is a directory of practitioners who are specifically oftentimes more versed in psychedelic assisted therapy and or plant medicine. And so when you go on Psychable, you can access this directory of practitioners. And this year, our big initiative has been focused on the individuals, the millions of people that are coming to the site, and the millions of people who are struggling and challenged with depression and are at their wits' end because they're just hitting roadblock after roadblock, being on medication, or being even told by therapists to get on antidepressants, which only cause them more harm. And so what we've been focusing on is three tenets here. One is they can apply to work one-on-one with me, and we will resource them through the foundational, the principles, microdosing, even ceremonial work. Two, there's group work as well, where you can be in a community of like-minded people that's safe and non-judgmental, who are all going through their own, ailments with mental and physical issues, but doing this work together. So we will resource you with all the same information, with the foundational principles. And then the third thing is if you want to just do async and just really at your own pace, and making this content more accessible, we have created courses where it's self-paced and they can access the same information and really be able to do it for themselves, and then do it for their family.
Have you considered integrating AI in any of the parts of the process?
Yes, and I actually might need your help for that.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. Yes. We deploy and use AI pretty daily. Yeah. But I think in a very surface level way. Mm-hmm. And we are very open to tapping into AI in a way that can be more scalable, be able to reach more people and be more impactful, while at the same time maintaining the safety and the integrity of the work. And the safety for those that we are serving.
For sure. Yeah, I think AI could definitely be a major contribution to the improvement of the platform, just because you guys are dealing with digital information, a lot of it, the courses, and AI is really good at parsing that information, serving it, customizing it to whatever, people's situation they might have. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I'd love to propose maybe it's seeing how you guys handling certain types of situations, and maybe give you some suggestions. But because in my own journey, I've been really obsessing about how to create systems and processes and automation tools to expand the reach, expand the impact of the world. And it's such it could be such a beautiful tool for positive transformation at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love the way you just put that so articulately. I'm even trying to do that for myself, right? How do I continue to show up in the fullest and the highest service of where I need to be? And so a big exercise has been really utilizing technology and leveraging that to systematize, to automate, to operationalize as much as possible, so that it can free up more of my time for the extensive wait list of people that are really wanting support around their healing journeys. So
For sure. Yeah. Could you speak about psychedelics and spirituality? What the relationship and
I can speak from my perspective around that, and less of a more theoretical. In my perspective, with respect to psychedelics, the word safety continues to come through, right? Safety. So when you are new to this work, you don't know what you don't know, and there are oftentimes what I say. There's a big spiritual work component to this experience. And so for me, when I show up in the container in ceremony, utilizing and working with magic mushrooms specifically, it is important for me to keep the cleanest, safest, clearest container and only draw from the highest source, not introducing any other entities, demons, energies that are not in service to this person, right? So I think it's really important to just be aware of that, because oftentimes I will say there's a really beautiful book written by a dear colleague of mine, Dr. Maya Sheetreat, called The Master Plan Experience. And she's a neuroscience who has also stepped into the work of being a ceremonist. And she talks about the micro to the macro, right? Your inner terrain all the way up to the esoteric and the universe and the spirituality aspect of it. And what she talks about and touches in her book is the idea of oftentimes there are, it's important to be aware that there are a lot of charlatans in the space, charlatans that have their own agenda, right? Either to, extract things out of you, extract money out of you, extract for their own personal gain, for their own sexual pleasure. And that is an absolute no. Right? Like when you are engaging in psychedelics and plant medicine, this is for your healing. And there is never a space to cross the line for a practitioner or facilitator or shaman to ever touch you in a sexual way, to touch your private parts or anything like that. Like, no, absolutely not. I don't care who you are. No. And so to show up in fullest service as a practitioner, for me, it's, like I said, to keep the safest, cleanest, purest container and only connect with the highest source. And so for me, when I show up for a client, I pray that I may only be protected and only channel from the highest source for this person's highest good, for the person's highest healing, for their highest purpose. And that's it. That is it. I am just a container. I am in the deepest service. And so when it comes to this work, especially as a practitioner, I come to it with deep humility, deep reverence, and deep respect for the medicine. And the ego, that mind is no longer, it's pushed to the side. And it's really of the soul and the spirit that I show up in the highest service to those that I work with.
So then psychedelics tend to connect us deeper to our spiritual nature, right? And as we are seeing the development of the people are becoming more and more people becoming aware that there is such thing as psychedelics and people are more open to it. It's like a second wave of that. We used to have that in like 60s and now we have the second wave. Do you see that also is paired? So if you map it, like the wave for psychedelic awareness, it's also a way for your spiritual essence, are kind of parallel to each other. Do you see that in your clients?
Yeah. So the way I would respond to that is psychedelics and plant medicine can help you connect with your divinity, with God. It can deepen your spiritual work. And I think it just depends on the intention of that individual, right? What is your intention, and what is your goal of coming to the medicine? Like, and oftentimes I think it's just really important to remember that the intention of presencing what you are calling into your life is, what is that feeling that you want, right? Do you want to feel happy? Do you want to feel peaceful? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel present? And ultimately that it's really that simple. It's really that simple. We oftentimes convolute it with leveraging something for the gain of something and for the, financial blah, blah, blah success and blah, blah, blah. Well, but also success can mean really just feeling at peace in your life, knowing that you are, finding your purpose, you are walking your path. And for me, it's being that living example of that, right? I am here today, still alive because of this work and because of plant medicine, right? And living in the fullest expression of myself, of my truth, in alignment with my life purpose. All of the work that I do is my life calling. And so everything that I had to go through, all of the valley of the shadow of the death and the pits of hell and the roller coaster, the highs of highs and lows of life, all brought me to this moment, to this point of living out in my fullest expression in alignment to my life purpose and my life calling.
Another question for you. What's the force that's preventing the psychedelic renaissance to expand even faster? Maybe there's some, so what do we need to become aware of that we can maybe start removing in society?
I'll touch on this lightly, and then I just invite everyone and the listeners and audience to do their own research. But just realizing that there are also other agendas at play, and psychedelics, plant medicine in the wrong hands can really create a lot of harm and in service to a different agenda other than yours. And so you can even look at, articles and reading materials that traces the usage of psychedelics by the CIA. And I don't want to go deeper than that, but there are people in the space that all are in connection with that as well. And they are oftentimes put on a pedestal. And, on the surface, they may be progressing the Renaissance and getting things through the FDA. And then you have to kind of wonder, well, why are the one of the only ones doing that, right? Like, there are other things that we just need to be very aware of. And just make sure that in the private setting of when you decide to work with psychedelics, that you have done a lot of the vetting and feeling out of the practitioner or the retreat or the guide that you're working with. Is there a resonance here, right? How does it feel within my body about this person? Really honoring that, because again, this is remembering that your body has its innate wisdom, has its innate intelligence. It's always informing you of, is this a yes? Is this a no? Right? And if you don't hear a yes or anything, it's probably a no. And so it's just really important to continue to stay connected with our bodies. And which is why all of this work is so important, right? Because oftentimes what's happening is that there are other things at play that are constantly disconnecting us from our body, or because we don't want to feel the pain anymore. Well, all of that is a message from our bodies to listen. Listen to what that is telling you. And so, yeah, when it comes to psychedelics and its renaissance and all that stuff, it really comes down to the practicality of the individual. How does this feel in your body? Does this person feel right for you? Does this content feel right for you? Does this medicine feel right for you? Because just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you. So, yeah, just the attunement of that is just so critical in this work.
Could you share with me the vision of the future that is very exciting, desirable for you personally, something that's pulling you forward in the work that you do? And so maybe a future related to psychedelics, related to the work that you're doing, paint that picture that maybe will excite others to follow.
Yeah, it's very much the mission of Psychable and everything that I do today and going forward. Ultimately, it's to allow people to be in full alignment and full expression of themselves, to reclaim their sovereignty, to reclaim their freedom, to remember who they truly are. And that the foundational is love, the love, right? And the connection with your heart and the merging of your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit. Right? This is the work. This is the mission. So I see a future where the general population is aware of these foundational principles of really knowing how to heal themselves, of their children, of their family, of their communities. I see a future of mothers who really care, just care so deeply about themselves, to really love and take care of themselves so they can really love and take care of others, because they are in the full expression of feminine and the creation of it. And to be able to model what that is for everyone else around them, for all the men in our lives as well, and for the men to continue to step into and be in balance with their feminine as well, and being in balance with that, of their heart and of their soul and of their spirit. I see a future of people who are literally proclaiming as part of their intention, may I be of the highest service to God. May I be used for the highest service, for the highest source. And if we can all continue to step towards that direction, I see a beautiful world where it is not only healing, it is not only returning back to a sense of normalcy, but it is in a place of thriving. And so that is the future that I see.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think this is a beautiful place to kind of wrap up the conversation, maybe share with listeners, whoever is watching, any last thoughts, information that you would like to transmit through this medium, the ways maybe how people can find you, resources you would recommend people check out, things like that.
Yeah. We're available and connected on all of the platforms on social media. You can find us at psychable.com, spelled out. You can find me at Jemie Sae Koo. You can access all of this information on Psychable.com. And if you want to apply to work with us in our group work and our courses, you can go to join.psychable.com, and we will provide all the links in our show notes as well for you. So
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm honored to be here with you today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure connecting and talking to you.
I am deeply grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Beautiful.